Hi guys, it's been a while since I've done a video like this. I know everyone's been waiting for a long time about why I left Japan and that I live in Taiwan now. It's been a year. I know it's been late, like really late, but it's better late now than never. But anyway, guys, I want to leave a big disclaimer that when I'm going to talk about Japan, it's based on my own personal experiences. Please do not discredit other people or hate on other people because their experiences are not the same as mine. Please be aware that this is my experience, what I experienced in Japan, and other people's experiences will be very different from mine. So please respect other people's opinions and experiences. Okay, guys, so before I get any further in this video, I'm going to talk about 7 reasons. I chose 7 specific reasons about why I left Japan. And I nailed it down because if I list a bunch of reasons, it would just be too long. And I wanted to choose 7 things that specifically affected me in Japan, living in Japan, working, etc., etc. So let's start with number 7, and we're going to go up to number 1. So starting with number 7. So number 7 is natural disasters. And people should know that it's Japan. Japan suffers from earthquakes, typhoons, X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's like in the ring of fire, like right there in the middle. And yeah, you will suffer a lot of natural disasters in Japan. And that's one of the things that scared me. Sure, I have been safe in Japan. I've been bloody lucky. Seriously, I didn't have to worry about being hurt or worry if my apartment or the places I visited in Japan and any structures fell on me or debris. I've been extremely lucky, but eventually, I remember I lived in an older house in Japan and I was scared the roof was gonna collapse on me. And that frightened me, because I just see the roof just caving. I was like, oh God, is like the top floor gonna fall on me? And that really worried me about Japan. Now, I'm not discouraging you and saying like Japan has bad building codes. Most of the time it doesn't. It's really safe and they make that really, really strict about how to build buildings. But sometimes there's buildings in Japan that are cheaper to live in. And you got to be careful of that, I mean, it's the price you pay for. Sure, the higher price will suck. It sucks to move there. You got to pay your deposit, X, Y, and Z. But it's safer than buying a cheap place that may fall apart. But yeah, natural disasters kind of terrified me because it's really bad in Japan, depending on where you live. If you live in Tokyo or where the big tsunami hit Fukushima, it's really bad. So just be aware that natural disasters is a daily occurrence in Japan, depending where you live. If you're in Kyushu, hurricanes and typhoons. If you're up north, you're going to feel tsunamis and earthquakes. It's just natural disasters all around, and it affects all of Japan. So be aware of that. So let's move on to number 6. So number 6, this is something that happened to me personally, and I wouldn't want this to happen to other people. But again, based on my personal experience, is you get bullied a lot and you will face a lot of harassment at work. It's very common in Japan. At first, it wasn't that bad. Like, it was just mistakes I made, and I took it in. I didn't see it as an issue. But it became constant and constant. Like, oh, you didn't do this, or you didn't do this little thing. It's like something that didn't affect the lesson or the school or even the curriculum of the school. It would just be meaningless things at work, and it used to bother me. Some people will bully you, I should say, that you didn't do this, or you didn't communicate well, or you didn't do this specifically, you didn't put a happy face, you didn't finish on time. They'll complain about everything. And that was like one of the few jobs I worked in Japan that used to do that. So be aware, they will be, how can I say, on your ass. Seriously, excuse my language, but they will be on you. They will ride you, they will bully you. And that affected me a lot. Like the first couple of jobs I worked in Japan, it was really, really bad. And it got to a point where I just had to yell back and understand Japanese labor laws. So be sure that if you're getting harassed or you feel like something's wrong at work, don't ignore it. Don't do what I did. Like the first couple of jobs I worked. I ignored it. I just let it slide. But don't. There's labor laws that protect you for this reason. For example, most jobs will say, oh, you got to wait 3 months to put in your resignation or you got to wait 6 months. Like, that's not true. In Japanese labor laws, normally it's 2 weeks or a month, depending. But yeah, don't let anyone bully you or say they will take away your money because the contract says so. That's illegal. They can't do that. So just be aware of what you're getting into. Be aware of the harassment. Be aware when you know something's wrong that doesn't feel right. Just be sure to check with your labor laws. They will help you. It's free. Just look up your district, like Nagoya. If you're in Nagoya, Aichi Prefecture, look for a lawyer in Aichi Prefecture. Tokyo, if you're in the Kanto region, just look up different prefectures, what their laws are, their labor laws. It's pretty easy. They have English lawyers, and you'll be okay. So be aware of that, okay? So let's move on to number 5. Number 5, guys, number 5 is discrimination. Yes, Japan has discrimination. Now, I can't say it's as bad as the United States where I'm from, just making comparisons, but it is there. And I'm going to make this one short because there's a lot to talk about and it will just take forever to make a whole nother video about it. But anyway, guys, discrimination is common. Some people will discriminate against you because you don't speak Japanese. It could be just because you're a foreigner. Like, that's it. There's a lot of discriminatory laws that they just let slide. They can make excuses for anything. So be sure to do your research before you come to Japan. I mean, there's a lot you have to do. But most of the time, your company should help you. But again, it's very common. It really is. It's really no fair, and they'll always put you in a place that's really inconvenient and pretty far away from work. So be aware of what you're getting yourself into. Do your research. And again, I would try to make a separate video for that another time. There's a lot I have to talk about when it comes to discrimination in Japan. And there's so much you got to look out for, who you should call, and what company can, if your company can help you look for an apartment on their behalf. Anyway, let's move on to number 4. So number 4 is seniority. And I know people are going to say, yeah, but I'm good at my job. I'm great. And yeah, I do respect those people with seniority who are in love with their job. They're kind of married to it, and they're willing to use the knowledge that they have to help others within the company. I respect that seniority. I don't respect the seniority where they don't tell you what to do really, and it's very just like, I'm just going to throw you into the fire and you got to learn by yourself. Like, I don't mind that, but sometimes the communication's not there, or you find something easier to make your job easier at work. Some people just blow you off. They say, oh, I've been here for 20 years. What do you know better than me? And it's really fucked. Excuse my French, but it's really messed up. It's cold. The way they say it is cold. The way, even if you find a way to do it better and you have experience, they will just shut you down. That's very common in Japanese culture. And I would like to get into details of that, but again, that's a video for another time. But be aware, seniority is really bad in Japan. It's terrible. Sometimes you might get blessed and you have a great boss who loves his job and is willing to teach you the steps and organize it in a way that helps you and improves your mental health. But again, majority of the jobs like that, or majority of jobs or companies in Japan don't do that. It's very common, and that's something you got to look out for. Anyway, guys, let's move on to number 3. So number 3, guys, economy. This is something that personally affected me a lot. I'm not going to go to the nitty-gritty detail, but the economy got really bad. I know it affected everyone around the world. COVID was bad. I lived in Japan for 3 years through COVID. Japan shut its borders down. Japan did a lot of things that worried me. And the economy was one of them, because imagine if you make about almost $2,500, maybe $3,000 a month, and now it's almost $1,500 to $2,000. And if I'm being generous, $2,500. But yeah, it's just crazy how bad the economy sunk in Japan. I mean, 100 yen was almost $1. I'm just using the US dollar for this estimate, but 100 yen, $1 was really, really close. Maybe 105 yen, 110. So you always remember that if you had $1, it was 100 yen. It was easy to know how I'm managing my money. But then when the economy sank, it went down really, really badly to like 160 yen to the dollar. And I wasn't saving money. Of course, if you have student loans and other things you have to pay for, that will hurt you a lot. Your money goes down and you have to look for part-time jobs. So if you're already working almost 40 hours a week and you need that extra part-time job on the weekends, that's going to hurt you. I mean, it's hard. And the economy just really, really sucked in Japan. I mean, I love Japan, but the economy hurt. It really hurt me. So if you didn't have any debt, I think you guys would kind of like Japan. But again, I can't go into the details. It's a lot to cover. But just be aware, if you come to Japan, you won't make that much money. You know, if you're here to be like, I don't know, a digital nomad, that's fine. But for anything else, I just don't think it's worth it. And we'll continue about why it's not worth it on number 2. So number 2 is mental health. And for those of you who are not aware, Japan does suffer a lot for mental health, but it's generally ignored, or it's like it doesn't exist. So if you're depressed or you're sad or you think your life is no good, I wouldn't recommend Japan. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not going to go into the details about why that happens in Japan. But again, if you're going to come to Japan, mental health is ignored here. You'll see a lot of people depressed, especially in Tokyo. I mean, I can't even name the number of times I was on the train back home from Tokyo and the train would just stop abruptly. And then I'll read the news later and it'll say someone jumped in front of the train. That is common. So be aware what you're getting yourself into and if you're mentally prepared for that. Again, Japan ignores this greatly. I don't know why they do it. I never understood why they just let it pass by and just say, oh, it can't be helped. They'll say, shigoganai. It can't be helped. There's nothing that can be done. And, you know, to me personally, because I'm a Westerner, I'll say that's bullshit. There's something that could be done. But again, just be aware that's where you're going to get yourself into if you live in Japan. People ignore it. You got to keep the harmony balanced in Japan, which I do respect in some ways. But there's a limit to where you can't respect it anymore. But again, just be aware. Watch yourself and understand what you're getting into. Are you mentally prepared? Are you happy? Are you very depressed and just want to leave? If you are, just don't do it. Please. Because going to Japan will not help it. It really won't. Anyway, let's move on to number 1. And number 1, guys, is work-life balance. And I know you're going to say, I'm from the USA, my life sucks. And trust me, I know I'm from California. And I know the work-life balance is terrible in the USA. But Japan is really, really bad. I mean, in the USA, be lucky that you get overtime pay. In Japan, you'll work like 50 hours a week. You'll have to work on your Saturdays and Sundays. And you will not get overtime pay for that. I can name a bunch of companies, but I can't. And all I can tell you is a lot of companies in Japan will just say, oh, you could get a time off or day and a half. It's just odd. Like, I'm working all this overtime. I'm not getting paid for it. Even one of the jobs I worked at said on the contract that if I work over 8 hours or more, I get overtime pay. And I never got that. I remember I used to complain about it because I didn't enjoy working from 10 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. And I didn't even get a lunch. So be aware, a lot of companies do that in Japan. They will give you like a 20-minute lunch minimum. And you just got to work your ass off. And it sucks. I mean, at least in the USA, you probably get a lunch. And if you don't, you could sue them. In Japan, it's a long process. And it's really, really hard, especially if you're a foreigner. So again, the work-life balance is terrible. It hurts your mental health. It'll hurt your pocket, all the money you make. It affects every aspect of your life. And I wouldn't recommend overworking so much in Japan because I did that. I worked literally from morning until night just so I could live in Japan. And it's like, man, I don't get to enjoy life anymore. I think that was the breaking point where it's like, man, why am I working 7 days a week and I can't even enjoy life. I can't. It's terrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, even though I disliked them or something. I just wouldn't wish that upon anyone. It's not worth it. Sure, some people may get lucky and they won the jackpot and they have a good company that helps them and gives them the work-life balance, but that's really rare. And it really depends on your qualifications. So just be aware of that. Do your homework, do your research. Because trust me, the work-life balance in Japan will hurt you in so many ways I can't even explain. But anyway, guys, that's something I wanted to put down for you guys about why you shouldn't just move to Japan right away. This is something you should look out for and be aware of. Anyway, guys, now that we're done with the 7 reasons why I left Japan, I want to let people know I'm not discouraging you for going to Japan. I'm just saying be prepared about what you're walking into. Don't just move because you hate life and you're depressed or X, Y, and Z. Do your homework. Think, is this a place for me? Understand who you are as a person. Are you a workaholic? Are you married to your job? Sure, go to Tokyo. You just like to work 7 days a week and not have a life. I mean, sure, I say go for it. I mean, I'm not stopping you. But again, every person's different. And I'm not stopping you from that. But also, I can't say I really hate Japan. I want people to understand, don't hate Japan. I'm just naming problems that affected me, but not only affects me, but also Japanese people. And they don't express that. And the reason why they don't express that is a time for another video, okay? That's a different time. But again, I love the last job I was at in Japan. I really miss it. And if my boss Kaori is watching this, I'm sorry. I wish things were different. I wish the economy wasn't bad. I really miss the last school I worked at. I miss those kids a lot. And sometimes I wish like I won the lottery so I could stay and help that school. But unfortunately, Apple English House had to close. You know, I couldn't stay there. Not enough children were being born in Japan. There's a lot of things that are going on in Japan that I can't explain in one video. But I miss my last job. I really do. I think that was the best job I ever worked in Japan. And honestly, if the economy wasn't bad and I didn't have to work 2 part-time jobs just to stay afloat and pay my bills and at least try to get some time to spend time with my friends, I would have stayed. But it just was too hard. It was too hard on my body. It was too hard on my mind, and I just couldn't take it. It's like, I don't know how. I kind of understand why people get super depressed when they work 7 days a week and you just can't enjoy yourself. You can't sit down and relax. You're just always thinking, oh, I got to pay this bill, I got to pay that, X, Y, and Z. It's just tough. It affects you eventually if you're living paycheck to paycheck. And that was almost my experience if I didn't have those extra part-time jobs. But yeah, I still love Japan. I want to let people know in Japan, like, Nihongo totemo daisuki. I still love Japan. I just didn't enjoy my work-life balance. I miss Japan. I miss all my friends there. I miss my last boss, Kaori. She was really awesome, and I'm sorry I couldn't stay with you until your school closed due to the population decline. I apologize about that deeply. And I wish things were different. I wish the economy wasn't bad and it got back to its feet, but it didn't. It got worse. And it even got way worse when I moved to Taiwan. Again, guys, be aware of what you're getting yourself into. I do want to talk about my life here in Taiwan. It's been wonderful. It hasn't been perfect, I will say that. But again, I will try to make more content for you guys to show you what life is like in Taiwan. If you want to hear more about Japan, stay tuned. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.